It's right there on the wall.
7:02.
Okay, 7:02, I'm gonna call this meeting, of the Dunbarton Board of Selectmen to, order. This is for Thursday, January 24th. We have all three selectmen present, town administrator is present, town, recording secretary is present. Recording, video for those residents who cannot attend is Mr. Leo Martell, thank you, Leo. And,
Reading minutes for the
oh
other.
yeah,
Linda Nickerson.
Linda Nickerson, as we so recognized her last week. Okay, old business, gentlemen, we have two sets of minutes.
Yeah, motion to approve the minutes from the January 17th regular meeting is amended.
I'll approve, second this motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion for the non-public approval of the January 17th, 8:15 PM minutes, as amended.
Second.
It was 8:58 for the record. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
8:58.
Yeah, that's okay.
I think those go back, don't they?
Yep. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna open up public comment, and again, I remind you, if you have a comment, please state your name for the record, so we can be taping it. I'll start with the back row. No, sir?
No, what's that?
Anyone? Okay, next row up, no? Okay, most of the people on the agenda tonight, so it's good to see you all. And, okay, I'll close public comment, and we'll go right down the agenda. And I take it Steve in front of me?
That is true.
Okay, we have Steve from Pro Technologies. He's gonna talk to us about security systems. Okay, we got your email, which was very, it was pretty much detailed, so we appreciate that. And we have a problem, and we wanna get it fixed.
Okay.
So I'll give you the floor for a few minutes, and we're gonna open up for questions from the board.
Okay, I'll try to catch up, I'm not sure how much has been discussed, so, what I have done is I was invited here to see your alarm systems and see what it would take to provide monitoring service. The alarm systems that you have in place are very good alarm systems, certainly quality products that are here. Our company would be able to provide you monitoring service by simply reprogramming the systems in most applications. This one has a little caveat that I'll get to. In doing such, we simply reprogram the system, we provide it through to a different central station, and your alarm systems would then be monitored by a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week central station. That's a very standard service in our industry, and we've provided the pricing to do that reprogramming, and provided the pricing for the monitoring service itself. So those are all standard services. The difficulty that we have in this situation is your previous alarm company has installed a code in the systems that prevents us from accessing the programming and to change the system to a different central station.
You verified that today?
I have not verified it today, I did it when we met last week.
A week ago.
About a week ago, I was here. We attempted numerous codes in the system. We tried every variation of 4-digit number that we could come up with that are standard for alarm companies to put in variations of his information. A little background history, if you're not familiar with this, I'll briefly tell you how this comes about and where the situation is a difficulty. All alarm systems have the ability to put in a program code into the system. The program code is intended for the alarm company to protect the data of the alarm system. So another alarm company or somebody with enough knowledge couldn't simply walk up to your alarm system and access it, alter the program in the system. The bad part is alarm companies use this as a ransom method, is probably only my good description of it. They put a code in, and their intent is to prevent you from changing services. So they have you as a monitored customer, they're billing you annually, and they don't want to lose that revenue. So that's their method of keeping your systems locked up. A lot of customers out there will weigh that decision of, do I wanna pay somebody to undo this situation, or will I just keep my monitoring with where it is? And that's kind of the nature of how the alarm industry has developed this little bad name for it. In this case, there are two levels of programming that can be done. One is simply put a code in the system, and without that code, we can't access the programming, but we could take a step of defaulting the system, which means we hardwire the system to default its own programming. The system goes back to exactly how it came out of the box from the manufacturer. That is an okay method of recovering access to it, but it does eliminate everything that's in the system, and we have to start from scratch and reprogram the whole system. So it's still a cost to you, because we're gonna have the labor and the time to physically go through, figure out everything about the alarm, and then reprogram it. The second stage that can be done is they can change the code, and then they can tell the program in the system to not default. So this is called an installer lockout, and at that point, we can default the system, and it still won't default the code, and we can't access the panel. Then the panel simply is removed, thrown in the trash can, and a new panel is installed and rebuild the program. We don't know about that second stage until we actually attempt to program the system. It's an item we would discover by powering down the system, powering it back up, and if it gives us a chatter, then we know that the system is fully locked down and we have to access it differently. So, as we've talked about in several conversations, this is something that I, as an alarm company owner, am adamantly against. I think it's wrong. I think that a person that sold you an alarm system has no right to prevent you from making a decision on what service is best for you. So us as a company, as Pro Technologies, we do install a program code in your system, but those codes are provided to you. They are a very simple process that you have access to it. You can test it, you can see it, you can know that it works, and it's simply a company policy that we would never lock someone out of their panel. If we didn't sell it to you, or we didn't lease it to you, there's no reason for us to prevent you from making the same decision somewhere down the road. So that's the position that we're in now. I would love to see All-Star be responsible for this and releasing these codes. It would be less expensive to the town to do that, but there is that point of legality and financial, where does it really weigh to pursue him legally? It's not that much money, so alarm companies have a tendency of getting away with this.
I have one question on your quote. Does your
Sure.
quote include replacement of our panels?
There are two estimates that have been provided, and one of them is, let me pull out my estimates here, just so I can speak exacts. The second estimate that has been provided, which is the estimate number 7982 in the top right corner.
Correct.
That estimate includes 3 of the alarm panels, the security panels. It does not include anything about the fire alarm panel. Fire alarms are, I don't believe, are locked out. I don't think that we're gonna be prevented from getting into the access of the programming of those. So that's a good thing, because the fire alarm panels are gonna be very expensive to replace. The panels themselves will be closer to $1,000 a piece, and then
So
the
this
expensive
estimate's
programming.
worst case scenario.
This is for the 3 security systems and the 4 fire alarm systems. As long as we have access to the fire alarms, this is our worst case scenario of the $1,209.44.
So there could possibly be some savings depending on how you access them when you try.
Absolutely. What I'm anticipating, or hoping for, I should say, is that when we're here to test the program of the system, if we find out we can just default the panel and start from scratch, then we don't have the cost of the 3 panels in here. And the cost, the individual cost of those panels is about $350 total for all 3 of them is about $350. So there is a potential savings there.
Now,
Thank you.
I didn't get to see a quote yet on the yearly maintenance from your company, although we did hear from Lean that there were some savings.
Mhm.
Do you have any ideas of the numbers on the yearly maintenance?
Absolutely. The cost, and I don't use the term maintenance, I use the term monitoring.
Yeah.
Maintenance is time and material, as you need, we'll service it. But as far as the monitoring cost, the total cost for all fire panels and all security panels is $1,315.80. That's an annual fee.
That's about $88
Savings.
savings.
On two of our systems, they've been, I would say, challenging, problematic.
Okay.
And they're gonna need some diagnosing as far as what's wrong with the system. We've heard everything from using the same telephone line, you don't have a dedicated telephone line, that there's corrosion on the lines. We've
No
heard
heat?
No heat.
And we've checked the lines out, and it seems to keep coming back to a number that was programmed into there that was not an 800 number, that it's calling out and giving us some charges on that unit, because the number wasn't an 800 number that it's calling out to check that. Are your numbers 800 numbers, or are we gonna get
Absolutely. 800 numbers, so you
even the
won't.
default number?
Yes.
I guess it was in reference to.
Even the backup numbers are 800, yes, we have two different 800 numbers that we use.
Okay,
We had that discussion that you get that surprise with the daily test phone calls going out and figuring out that was a charge. So yes, ours will call out on 800 numbers. That solves that question, but the fact that there's something, have there been service
it's
problems?
a brand new system that was put in.
Brand new.
I think the
Okay.
800 number may have fixed the highway
Yes.
garage, and I haven't heard anything.
that's what I'm
the
thinking.
last-
Okay,
Yeah, the thing is, the library the library building is a secondary challenge.
okay.
But the thing is, I think it has security and fire. Really, I think Lean is already updated with these, it only requires fire.
Correct, we did talk that you all were looking at that building as a really a risk and need for security. As you can imagine, I've been in the alarm industry for 35 years, so I feel strongly towards security systems. I will be more than happy to reprogram that system and at least have it as a local system.
Okay.
So you can turn it on, and if kids break in and sirens sound, that's still better than no alarm system at all. So I would much rather give that to you as a gift than have nothing used and then have something go wrong and we be in this meeting again. But the system will be ready if you changed your mind in the future and said, let's add the monitoring back on. It's simply reprogram in the phone numbers and turn it on.
Any last questions? I'm all set. I think, what I'd like to do is probably, we'll make a decision, and I think Lean will be in touch with you.
Okay.
And, I appreciate you coming in and answering, relieving us of our questions. We needed some help here. And, you sound like a very ethical gentleman, and we appreciate that.
Well-
And your prices are competitive, so, I think $88 is a wash, but it is still lower, which, when it comes to pinching pennies, I don't mind paying lower. But the bottom line is, we have systems, and we wanna get them to work.
Right.
And, that's and the thing is, I'm concerned about, the thing is, at least your reviews are very good. I don't wanna have to, argue or over the phone, can you come in and then you give us static, why you can't come in? And then you come in for like something that Lean could go up to the machine and punch two numbers and make it work, and rather than be charged a service call for $80, just have someone come in and punch two numbers in.
We had some good discussions about that. We have a very simple policy that'll put your mind at rest, and that is, how do we wanna be treated? And it's really that simple. If we can support you over the phone, we will. If you need us here today, we'll be here today. So
If anything, the other security person was very, I'll use the word abrasive, and to deal with, so it kinda makes it difficult when you're trying to cure a problem and you're getting that, return from the individual that knows something about it.
it always makes me wonder how to stay in business. That's been my biggest question in life.
If there's no other questions, I'll let this gentleman be on his way.
No, I think it's fine.
Yeah,
All right.
and we'll get back to you ASAP.
Thank you for having me here, I appreciate it. And we'll talk in the near future.
And thank you for following up with a phone call.
Great, thank you.
Have a good night. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, we're gonna go, time is, okay, we're gonna open up we have a public forum concerning our solar farm ground mount proposal. And I'm gonna yield to the energy committee. And we have a pretty good audience here. There's more, if anyone's sitting over there, you wanna come over here, it'd be a little bit better to see on this side, if you wanna come in. Don't be afraid, don't bite. Dave sometimes, eh? Just to give a little background, we have a great energy committee in town. I think what's nice about it, they always come in with proposals on how to save money. But the thing is, you gotta spend money sometimes to save money. And I'm a firm believer of some of the, what they've done in town with a lot of the LED light improvements. And it does affect the electric bill we're paying every month. And historically, they have done wonders for the town. And this year, they came up with another proposal. And it's just can we create some electricity to offset our electrical needs in town? And when you create electricity, as you all know, whatever you make, whatever you offset is 1-to-1, but if we make anything extra, we get to sell it back to the provider. And that's where we can actually not only save money, but we can make money. And with that, I'm gonna give it to Energy.
Sure. I'm Dana Lavoie, I'm a resident in town in Dunbarton, and I'm also a member of the Energy Committee. And I'm gonna present to you the project that we've been working on proposing to the town. I do have some extra handouts, I saw some people grabbing some. Is there anybody that would like this, because this is helpful to follow along with? Anybody need one? Okay, we're all good? You're in charge if anyone new comes in. Okay, so, this started quite a few months back, last summertime or so. We were looking at this as a possibility to both provide energy for the town and save the town money at the same time. The scope of the project is essentially to design, construct, and implement a solar panel farm on a town-owned property. That was our mission. We looked at a number of properties in town. I would say somewhere between 12 and 15 different properties that the town owned. And we ultimately came up with the town transfer station as the ideal spot for many reasons for locating that solar farm or solar panel array. The project is designed to provide enough power to generate the equivalent needs of, we're calling it five town-owned buildings, which includes the transfer station, this town office, the town hall and library over here, the town garage, and also the police station and fire station. The implementation of the project would occur this year, and it would last, the design of the system would last 30 years or more, potentially. That's the going lifespan of a solar array. Chances are in 30 years there may be technology out there that would make you want to replace it with something newer, but at least that is the lifespan of the system. The proposal that we have is designed financially so that there's no upfront cost to the town. And the payback to the town is pretty significant, and I can go through some of the numbers here so that we can understand that. So let me just go through the project overview. This is kind of a technical piece here. Project overview, we got 156 panels. They're 390 watt panels. It produces a total of 60,840 DC watts. Watts is a measurement of power, and the energy that it produces over a year is about 79,000 kilowatt hours, and that's based on the location, based on shading, our latitude on the globe and whatnot. The site, as I said, is the Dunbarton transfer station, offsetting the usage costs at the 5 facilities listed there. The total annual energy consumption of those sites is approximately 73,000 kilowatt hours, so we are designed to overproduce. You'll see later on that if we do overproduce, we do get to take advantage of some of the payback from the utility company in terms of dollars, in terms of real dollars. The percentage of electrical usage offset comes out at about 108%. The recommended solar vendor is Granite State Solar of Bow, New Hampshire. Then it's worth going into the project financials. The aggregate electricity cost of those 5 bills that we're talking about equates to approximately $10,000 annually at 2019 rates. The initial cost of the town for the project is $0. There's nothing to kick it off. The way the financials are designed are in years 1 through 6, there's actually a monthly payment made to Granite State Solar of $815. And with that, we're essentially paying them kind of a lease payment for those 6 years, and the monthly savings on the Eversource bills during those 6-year period of time is approximately $840 at 2019 rates. As if Eversource rates did go up, Eversource is the energy provider, that $840 would actually go higher. The $815 is a fixed payment over those 6 years per month. So what that means is over those 6 years, we're cash flow neutral or even slightly positive, anticipated positive, but cash flow neutral would be good too. At month 73, which is at the end of 6 years, the purchase price of the array would come in at $50,000. That's a fixed price and would be in the contract. And from that point on, the town of Dunbarton would own the array. All the energy that it was producing would be ours, and it would offset at year 7, starting at about $12,000 annually, savings of electricity rates, and projected to grow to $17,000 over a 30-year period. That's if you had 3% annual increase of energy from Eversource. The numbers would be slightly different if inflation rate of energy, electrical energy was higher or lower than that. The payback on the system at year 7 would come in at approximately 3.5 years, and it would generate a cumulative surplus, financial surplus to the town over the 30 years of $384,000. And again, the assumption is a 3% increase in Eversource rates. If you flip the page, these are double-sided, you'll see that there is a potential for, the state offers renewable energy fund rebates for these projects, both for residential customers and for municipalities and commercial entities like this. And the potential rebate is estimated to be $18,408, and that's based on the size of the array. That would reduce the array purchase at month 73 from the $50,000 that I had mentioned down to $31,592. What that results in is a payback on the system of approximately 2.25 years. At that point, the cumulative surplus to the town then grows to $402,000. Other financial pieces here for people who track solar or no solar. The final installed gross cost of this system is $1.79 per watt. With the rebate, it would be $1.48 per watt. And if we were to comparatively purchase the system outright, the system cost is $173,000, which would be $155,000 with the rebate applied. And also to compare that, the final installed gross cost would be $2.85 a watt, or $2.55 per watt with the rebate. So our proposal is to go with the lease to own proposal and not the outright purchase at day one proposal. The reason for that is mentioned in the note here, is that Granite State can actually leverage tax credits, rebates, and other accelerated depreciation, which are not available to a municipality. Benefits to the town, reduces the electrical utility costs over a period of 30 years or more if the system stays running and in place. Allows the town to produce its own clean renewable solar energy. Protects against rising energy costs. These costs are fixed, they're known, and they're now. Doesn't matter what happens with the energy supplier, whether it be Eversource or anybody else. We would be insulated from any utility rate increases that are the result of the power generation. It does pay for itself many times over a period of that 30 years and provides income to the town that can be used for other purposes. The low maintenance technology, the system has a 25-year parts labor warranty on the components, so it's a very durable system. Reduces the carbon footprint of the town. I mentioned if the array overproduces, we still get to benefit by that. There's no cash outlay from the town required at the start of the project, and essentially a $173,000 installed system would be transferred to the town at month 73 for only $50,000. Project recommendation from the Energy Committee is the Granite State Solar bid was the bid that we were hoping to get for multiple reasons. I mentioned the taking advantage of tax credits that we're not able to. They also have successfully implemented solar projects for municipalities and nonprofits under this proposed structure. They're technically experienced in the commercial solar market, and they have available resources to do the project for us here in 2019. And going to the next page, I want to mention that the Dunbarton Energy Committee has extensively reviewed this proposal and technology available from this vendor and other vendors, and is unanimously in support of the proposal presented to you today. And it does have the support of the Board of Selectmen sitting here, which we might hear from in a minute. Transfer station management, we've been in full contact and dialogue with them, and also the Town Forest Committee, which oversees and manages the land that the transfer station is on. We have been in touch with all of those. I threw a picture here that I found from Dunbarton, New Hampshire, which is an array, 55 kilowatts, which is about the same size as what we would be putting up, so it gives you an idea. We are also looking at a double row. This happened to be a double row facility. And then the last page gives you the satellite image of the transfer station, and where the north is to the left, as you can see by the indication down in the lower left-hand corner, and the two rows would fit in the back on level land that exists there currently, and doesn't require any clearing other than just some peripheral small trees and things that need to be taken down so that there wouldn't be damage done to the array. So that's my proposal and presentation.
We've heard from these folks many times. It's now your time to ask questions and share your concerns, your approval, disapproval, or support, or you think it's a bad idea, a good idea. So I open it up to the public here. Just raise your hand and identify yourself, please.
I'm Phil Kimball. Just one question. Some parts of state government have been trying to limit the amount of solar power. Is this going to be a problem?
There are limits to the amount of certain projects that are put in. This falls under those limits.
Okay.
Eric, I don't know if you have any comment on that.
That's right on.
Okay.
I'll introduce myself too, since Dana just referred to me, but I'm the co-owner of Granite State Solar, and I put together this proposal. And my name is Eric Shiflett, and happy if there's any technical questions that Dana can't answer, I'll answer them for you, or any types of questions, but I'm here to support Dana and the selectmen if there's any questions.
Anyone else, please? Go ahead, sir.
Fred Mullen, Park Lane. What's the loss of efficiency over the years of that solar panels?
We have about, the panels themselves, I think guarantees about 0.4% annually, which results in about 15% potential max loss over 30 years. I don't know how close I am to the,
You're within 2%.
okay?
87% production is the guarantee at year 25, so you were pretty close.
Okay,
That's the warranty level where if it's worse than that, something's wrong. But you really shouldn't see that level of degradation in New Hampshire, because we don't have acid rain, we don't have dust from a desert scouring and making the panels foggy. You know, we have a very good environment, so that's, the worst case scenario would be 25 years from now, they're at 87% of their rated power.
Would the snow have a effect on it, like, say, dust would?
It's, snow doesn't damage the panels. It will reduce production while the snow is on them, but we will be mounting this at a 35-degree pitch, so they'll actually shed snow pretty rapidly after a snowstorm ends. And snow loss is factored into the production. We assume about 3 hours per day in February of actual production because of weather factors. So maybe if the snow melts off quicker, it'll be improved, but we're going on weather history and typical irradiance for this location.
And the panel itself, is a lot of black trim on the panels.
These modules have silver trim.
Okay.
They're commercial, they're not as beautiful as what you might see on a house with black on black with black panels. These are very economically priced, but very, very high output. But it's they are still black cells, monocrystalline. They will absorb the sun and accelerate the melting and the snow shedding, even though it's a silver frame.
Okay.
Pete Weeks, 13 Stark Highway North, has the actual, for the town hall, obviously you know that we're trying to get that, approved as far as renovations go, and through those renovations, they're gonna have elevators and all that stuff. Has this been considered as far as the power to take care of that, or?
it has not, this was looking at the historical power usage.
Just
of the
as
town.
it is now?
Yes, it is, yeah.
What would happen if that did get approved and that went through the?
Depends what the power add is there. Let me just say that the overall return of your investment on this is irrespective of any additional power needs that the town wants to put in. So if we end up consuming more power in the town because we build new buildings or do other things, this return on investment stays static, it doesn't change. You still get that return, you just might have an opportunity for providing an enhancement to the system in the future to actually cover future power needs if you wanted to.
And just a question to the selectmen, another question. I assume this is gonna have to go through the planning board. Does this require zoning board at all?
No.
Because it's in the correct zone and everything, okay. So it would go through the planning board stage?
It may not go to the planning board.
No?
No.
They don't have anything on,
No.
Municipalities are exempt,
Yes.
but as a courtesy, we might ask you to just present it to the board,
Well, that's
so
a
if
good
they have
thing.
any input.
I also, the risk of new technology, to me, I make the analogy is like buying a computer. You can buy a computer now, or wait 5 more years and wait for the upgrade to come out, and then for those 5 years, you have nothing. And the things I know for a fact, and we all can sit here, we know computers always upgrade, there's gonna be a better product. And the thing is, we can cross that path when the magic bullet comes and we have more power available. But the thing is, sometimes you just gotta cut bait, you might say, and make the decision, and we're gonna go down this path and make it work for us. The numbers seem right. Go ahead.
Lee Martell, so I guess from what Peter's asking, yeah, we're gonna be maintaining that production of electricity. So we all know that chances of building in town are pretty great, that in 30 years we'll have other buildings or what have you. So I understand that, and I figure that that's beside the point. We still can go with this and supply what we have now at this present level, and then some. But can we add on to this system at some future time?
Can we add a third row of panels, is what you're probably asking if we want
Yeah,
to.
can we add on to that system if we find that we need more power, we wanna add more power, and we...
Yes. This is designed to fit behind the concrete
Yeah.
horseshoe, that's
Yeah.
the burn pile, or the
Burn pit.
yeah, the burn pit and the brush. So if that was moved and given us room for a third row, that'd be okay.
But I mean, yeah, right, but it is expandable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, there are statutory limitations right now. with the state of New Hampshire, if you're gonna go above 100,000 watts, it becomes, different economic case. So going from, you know, where we're at, which is in the 60,800
Yep.
range, you can go up to 100,000 without any change.
But in the future, that could climb too.
It could, yeah, and actually there's legislation
Okay.
pending that
Right.
could allow that.
It looks like there's easily room for an additional row on there if you look at the math of it.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
We'd have to
There'll be
look
no,
at force people.
no
8
technical
weeks
barrier.
again, is this gonna be on the warrant for,
No,
does it have to be, or?
it does not have to be. It's such a small amount. Thing is, as I said, we have, we're making a lease payment for the first 6 years.
6 years, yeah.
And then the big bogey will come, whether we continue to make the lease payment, or we take the option, it's an option to buy. We exercise the option to buy, and the thing is, we can buy it at 50, or if we cross our fingers, we could get a rebate on it. That's not set in stone now, that's to be determined. And the thing is, Granite State Solar would love to have us continue making payments on it, because they would reap the benefits. But we have an option to buy at year 6 and save even more money. And that's how I view it.
You could have a
Please.
Joyce Ray, 325 Stark Highway North, and I'm very happy to see this proposal. And aside from saving money for the town, I'd just be proud that our town might vote to move with others in starting to use alternative energy, so that would make me very happy.
Thank you, good comment.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
good job.
Heidi Costanzo, I'm Hot Lake. I was just curious about maintenance during the first 6 years, and if we choose the option to buy at year 7, what would the maintenance contract or maintenance costs be, and who would be responsible for them?
Eric, you wanna address that?
Sure. I wouldn't budget anything for maintenance, honestly. We don't sell a maintenance plan. We actually would love to. We'd love to generate recurring revenue that way, but there's really nothing to do. It's, if something is a failure, it's really more of a warranty concern than a maintenance concern. There's grass back there that's already mowed right now twice a year. That would just continue, so it wouldn't be an additional requirement. If there was a really crazy snow year and the snow was so heavy that it shed the panels and started backing up on the panels, then maybe snow blowing in front of them to increase production would be something that would make sense, but there was really no moving parts, there's really nothing that needs to be done, the rain cleans them off for you. Just the continual keeping the grass and the brush below the level of the lowest panel is the only issue. I wouldn't really budget anything for operation or maintenance expense.
Could you talk about the glass? Is it like a Gorilla Glass?
The glass is, it's a tempered glass like a Gorilla Glass. It's like a car windshield. It's designed to withstand hail up to the size of a quarter, and it's rugged. You could literally walk on a panel. It doesn't break, but it's tempered, so when it shatters, it shatters. So you wouldn't want to mow the grass with the chute of the lawnmower facing rocks towards the glass. But a softball or a baseball probably would bounce off, but a rock, no. Yeah, so they're rugged. They're rugged. And if you do shoot rocks at the glass, that's not a warranty repair, okay? You guys are on the hook for that.
There's actually some communities that have these solar, I'll use farm, because it's easier, but they're increasing the amount that they've had now only because it's been a success.
Yeah, and people will dip a toe in and decide that it works. Okay, let's proof of concept is there. Let's expand. We did a system for dairy. It's 100,000 watts. It's a little larger than this last year, and now we're proposing another system for them, which is 1,000,000 watts. And ultimately, if the legislation that's pending right now was to pass, which would allow net metering of systems larger than a megawatt and 1,000,000 watts, then that system could double in size to cover the needs of the town.
One of the ones that come to mind, I think, is Webster. Isn't Webster adding another solar farm? Or solar panel?
Yes and no. We did a system for Webster, which actually covers the whole needs of the town except for the school. But there's a parcel of land which is in Webster and Franklin, and there's been a third-party developer who's offering to lease the land to build a large solar farm. It's a different type of project, and it doesn't actually cover the town's electricity. The town will benefit from a lease arrangement where they're just charging a set fee for the leasing of the land, and then whoever purchases the power from the solar array, could be businesses or residents, but it's not to actually feed the town's meters. So that's a different type of project, and that's in the concept stage. Granite Apollo did a press release on that, so you could read that press release, but there's no further information about the development beyond that press release, really.
Who monitors the output of each panel?
So you will have that. We do not proactively monitor. We would charge for that if we were actually looking at it every day. But we install a monitoring system which covers every single module, every panel. We provide you with the username and access and the password. You can actually monitor it every day proactively, or even set up a monitor in town hall or at the transfer station where people can actually see the productivity in real time, which is a good plus. And if there's a problem, you can set up alerts so that the town administrator or selectman receives an email if there's a problem with a panel, or a problem with the entire system. I don't recommend the panel level monitoring, because when you have a snowstorm, you get 60 or 156 emails, one for each panel that's covered in snow. So the system-wide is probably better.
And to answer one of Peter's questions, as far as a warrant article, if we decide we wanna go to the purchasing after 7 years, it may start sooner than that. I think that's what we talked about, is spreading out a warrant article so that, you know, we could accumulate the money before the 7th year dead date comes, and that way we could purchase it. So that would give the town an opportunity to invest and own their own, or continue to lease.
That'd be similar to a capital improvement fund.
Let me follow up on that a little more, Bob. We were talking about a warrant article on this, and we've decided that because we're gonna be saving the town money on the month-to-month bill that we pay for our electricity for the services now, that we could do this at the select board. We wanted to make sure that the public was aware of it, that's why we're having the public meeting. And after we have a full year in place of this, we would probably go and decide whether we've got 50,000 at the 7th year to divide over these next 5 or 6 years, or 32,000 depending on the rebate. And then we would probably go to the town with a warrant article for a small amount of money each year, $5,000 or $6,000, to own this system on the 7th year, so we'd have that money in place on the 7th year to purchase it, and then the town would regain all the benefits from that point on. So it'd be a very small amount of money, regardless of the way it goes. We want to make the public aware of this project, so that the townspeople knew about it and they knew the benefits. And this project wasn't a project that came in front of the selectmen that we had great enthusiasm that would go through the town until they came up with this lease program. And because for the town, we could not get the 30% reduction from the state, but Granite State can. So when they offered that to us in a lease program, it makes this whole system a lot more affordable for the town, and we're going into it year one with savings without any expense incurred, as you can see from this layout. So it's a win-win project, and we'd like to get going as quick as we could on it.
And it gives us a year to show proof of conception, as far as, you know, what the savings are, so.
One more question up here.
Ray, Stock Highway North. So when you have that capital reserve fund, you could take the surplus energy income from PSNH and put it into that.
That's exactly what we were discussing, that
And
concept.
then it really minimizes the amount that has to come out of the town budget.
That's exactly where we were discussing that option. So that thing is, as my colleagues have said, we'd like to see a year of actual real numbers that we can present. And that, I mean, it's one thing to have it on paper, it's one thing to say, hey, we've got some real data here.
And so regardless, even if we went lease program out to year 30, we're still looking at a savings on the electrical cost for the town, all the way through all those years. So it's, you know, it's a win-win regardless of whether we purchase this project or not.
But the thing is, it always becomes a no-brainer if it's working well. We don't want Granite State to have our savings at year 6.
Excuse me. Can I add a little something to that? And historically, these types of power purchase agreements are tied to the market, and so there's assumptions that every year electric rates go up, and so every year the the cost of the lease goes up, or the power purchase agreement cost goes up. This is fixed, though. This is different. This is sort of like pre-buying oil at $1 a gallon. Now, Eversource predicts, and everybody predicts that rates will go up, but we don't know how much they'll go up. So we're not making any predictions here. We're just basically saying that we know we can cover the cost of our loan on this equipment for this money for these numbers of years, and we'll keep it flat, and we'll assume rates go up, and so the savings starts out neutral or slightly cash flow positive, but it should increase. And ultimately, if rates were to tank for some reason, to go to 2 cents per kilowatt hour, that would be a case where you wouldn't buy the array from us. It'd be cheaper just to pay a lease. But probably rates will go up, and making the decision to purchase it definitely is in the best interest of the town in terms of the town's return on investment. And for me and the company, our hope is that you'll purchase it as well. We could own it for 25 years, but we'd rather just, have it off the books and not have to chase you down for the bill for 25 years. So our best interest is, I think, in the town's best interest too.
So you don't wanna be an Eversource.
No, we don't. But this is a perfect scenario for us to monetize the federal tax credit. We can actually write this off as a depreciating asset, take advantage of all the commercial and tax benefits that are available to commercial entities that municipalities, churches, nonprofits are not eligible for. That's sort of the problem with the whole solar incentive market, is it's really geared towards residential market, commercial market. When it comes to municipalities, schools, nonprofits, it's lacking. So we will monetize those benefits, and that's why the town can get something that seems, like a no-brainer, I think you said, Michael. It works for us because we will just pass those savings along to the town. And it's sort of a new model, but we're not the first ones to do it, but we're getting into that particular space now.
That's Troy, another question.
John Rickard on Barnard Hill, and I would echo what Joyce said about being glad that Dunbarton is doing this, and thank you for all your work in this. A couple of questions. It sounds like these panels are going to be fixed. Is that true?
They are, yes.
Any reason why not the active kind or tracking kind?
It is less expensive to do fixed panels. You don't get the same production out of it, but I would say, maybe Eric will chime in here, but I think the overall, if you had a tracking system, your overall panel counts would go down, but your overall system cost count goes up. Because now you're talking about tracking hardware, now you actually have mechanical things, you have motors that could potentially fail, or trackers that could fail. Eric, I'm sure you know the cost balance between trackers versus fixed.
We love trackers. We do tons of them. I have one at my house. And so does my business partner and our sales guy. So we love them, but they have a real specific installation requirement, which is better horizon to horizon sun view to really increase that productivity. They will make full power at 8 o'clock in the morning. But if there's shade at 8 o'clock in the morning, then that doesn't work. This has a very great southerly aspect, this site, but the east-west aspect is shaded by trees. It won't affect the production on a fixed array very much, but on the tracker, it would inhibit some of that morning and afternoon production. Also, you want to stagger trackers. They will shade themselves. So you lay them out with more space between them when you have multiple trackers, so that they don't shade themselves, and you stagger that too, not just in a straight line, but so that in the morning they're not right in front of each other, off to the side. So you actually need more space for the trackers in this scenario. If it's a single tracker for a residential home, it's a lot less space, but when you multiply them, because they can shade each other, it changes the design. So we love them, but this is the best solution for the town.
And I'm curious about your choice of location. We went through several town properties. Is security a concern? Is access a concern? What were your deciding points?
There was a number of things. So clearly the compass orientation of a site is primary. You need to actually face to the south, at least within 30 degrees each side. We also looked at the disruption to the The site itself, a lot of the sites were treed and would have to be cleared and require a lot of excavation work to actually level the site and prepare the site for even an installation to occur. There obviously had to be a certain size too. When we finally kind of started to narrow down on the size that we needed, there were certain sites that were eliminated just because they weren't large enough, maybe to handle it. And also the shading piece, if you have, full mature 80-foot trees around, that just means you have to either go further out to take those down, or you get more shading and then less production from it. And then also the closeness to other properties. We looked at that too. There were some that were right next to residences in town, and for, trying to avoid the neighbor situation where they might be not thrilled with having a solar farm next door to them. This site didn't have the visual impact from a neighbor in that scenario. And I guess lastly, there were sites that didn't have access to electric power. And that was significant, because if you might have a beautiful site. There's actually a really nice site down here off of the road across the street that the town owns. Plenty of land down there, it's treed, we could have taken it out, there weren't neighbors, but the nearest power pole was 1,000 feet away. And so now to get something down into there would have been more costly. And a site like the transfer station, which is already consuming power, we actually get much more benefit out of offsetting the transfer station power than we do out of offsetting the other sites within town. The way the net metering works, if you're producing power at the transfer station, you get the full 18 cents per kilowatt hour credit off of your Eversource bill. If you're producing excess power at the transfer station, you get 13 cents a kilowatt hour credit towards the other buildings. So picking a site that was already a town consumer of energy was a bigger benefit. So those are
Maybe
some-
to speak to the transformer size on the street too. If you looked at those, they were already to the size we needed. We didn't
Yeah,
have to
that is
upgrade.
true, yep. Yep, so we have a transformer there at the transfer station, which is adequate to support the size of this array that would actually send power back into the grid, because now you're not just a consumer of power, you're a generator of power. And Eversource needs to make sure your transformer is adequately sized, and in this case, it was.
I'd like to say one comment too. I think there's many consumer articles talking about putting leasing solar panels on your own home. And 9 out of 10 of them are all negative about leasing it. And it goes back to the point where most people don't stay in their homes 20 years. They have to sell their homes, and when they sell their homes, it becomes a myriad of complications when you try to sell the panels, which have a lease tied to the house. They almost have a lien on the house. We're not moving.
We also didn't wanna put them on the town buildings, so we considered that.
Fred, you have a
Yeah,
comment?
Fred Mullen, Stark Lane again. If by chance there was a solar panel that shorted out or something, or you hit a lightning strike or something, got electrical fire down there, is there anything the fire department would have to know about shutting them down, or is there any hazardous material what those things are made out of that they would have to know about?
It's not hazardous material. There's a shutdown that'll be on the building, on the transfer station building, where the conduit comes through the dirt and up to enter the building, so there'll be a shutdown point right there. These also have a automatic shutdown, so if grid power is not feeding the transfer station, the array will no longer feed the transfer station or have the potential to feed the grid or backfeed and fry the lineman who's working on the array. There's really no components on here that would be likely to catch fire or sustain fire. We had an array hit by lightning in Deerfield, and actually the house sustained a lot of damage, as did all the electronics in the house, and the array was fine, which was ironic. But it was lucky. But really, fire departments don't have to worry about anything hazardous
So
here.
there's nothing like, say, a capacitor type of a thing will hold a charge?
No, nothing like a battery or capacitor that will
Yeah.
quickly discharge. Power cut is at the back of each panel. Every individual module has its own microinverter on it, and it will not feed any DC current beyond the panel itself. So even the wire The trench line, if you were to cut into that, there won't be anything there, no DC or AC. It's a very safe system. And there's nothing toxic, like I guess there's a plastic back sheet on the back of the module, so that would be toxic, but there's nothing that would continue to burn. It's mostly glass and metal, aluminum, and silicon, which is sand, so it doesn't really want to burn.
Eric, I'm following that up with one more question. At year 30, and they're no longer productive, or 32, or however many years we get out of them, is there any problems recycling them or disposing of them at that time frame?
No, there is a recycling market that's developing for old modules, but most of what's been installed has been in the last 4 or 5 or 6 years. None of those have been retired, but there are recycling industries that I know are ramping up in the anticipation of accepting solar modules in the future. It's glass, the aluminum is what's valuable, the solder may have some precious metal in it, but nothing really toxic. It's not like even a lithium battery or a compact fluorescent light bulb. There's no mercury. It's actually, they're very recycling friendly. But right now, nothing is being recycled because they haven't really reached the end of life. Keep in mind that 25 years from now, these things need to be working almost as good as new. 87% as good as new. So chances are, even at 30 years, they're still not going to be something that's worth recycling at that point.
Okay. Any last oh, we have one more question.
I think we might have answered this before, but it was Heidi Costanzo from Hawk Lane. I had passive solar panels years and years ago, and they long expired their life expectancy, but the biggest problem that I personally had with them was the clouding. Will there be clouding with the photovoltaic ones?
No, passive solar is, you're talking about solar thermal. Solar thermal is glycol filled with tubes to capture heat energy from the
Yeah,
sun.
they heated up rocks.
Yep. You can use that for water or rocks, or that's and they're very different. Those were not made of tempered glass. These don't cloud up. They shouldn't look any different 25 years from now than they do at this point. And it's a very different type of system because we're just producing electricity. You don't need to change anything or change the glycol or bleed the air out of the lines. It's just does its thing silently, which is nice. Yeah.
Similar to windshields on cars, really the biggest issue with older windshields is the road debris that ends up hitting them or cracking them or anything like that, where if you left a car, sitting there for 25 years, the windshield would still be clear.
Okay, any last questions? Leo?
Yeah, Lee Martell again. No, for the record, I'd like to say I'm on board with this. I think it's a real great idea.
I'd like to see just a show of hands of people who are in favor of this. I'm gonna say everybody, thank you.
It's a no-brainer.
I didn't see the selectmen's hands go up.
I have another question for Dana. When you're figuring that $384,000 at the end of the life of these, or through the life of them, was that 87% figured into the calculation?
Let me say this, the amount of variables in that number would probably exceed that 13% loss of the panels, so I would say that I did not put a 0.35% degradation of power generation, because even just a couple percent of Eversource
Right.
Inflation changes would
Should add
totally
that.
wipe that out, or add to it, or negate it, or anything like that, so I felt that was a margin of error that I didn't account for.
Eric, another question for you.
Yeah.
If we did add a third row to cover, like, let's say we wanted to expand to cover the school, or, additional levels of electricity that the town needs, would we be able to lease that third row, or we have to purchase the third row?
I don't see any issue with a similar arrangement. I think we've just crossed that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah.
Everything typically goes down in terms of pricing with solar. Incentives change. Maybe there will be something for municipalities at that point. So if everything was the same like it is right now, sure, we'd lease the third row.
Okay.
But we'll definitely need to re-quote that whenever that time comes.
One more question in the back.
Barbara, just a comment, if we ever did get permission to design one for the school, it would be much better to put the facility behind the school, because then you're getting that same
Bang for the buck with the,
18% versus 13%
Yeah.
advantage.
I'm sorry, Heidi Costanzo from Hawk Lane.
go ahead.
Why did you choose for on the ground and not on rooftops?
Well, the thing is, one of the, if you recall, about 3 or 4 years ago, it was brought before the voters, and the
I
thing
just,
is.
sorry, I just moved to town.
Okay, well, we had a proposal to bring it up on the town, this building here. And the issue is that if the roof condition is a major issue. And if there's a service problem, we gotta get up to the roof. The roof may need to be replaced. This is a historical district. We wanna really mar the view of our town buildings with solar panels. So there was a couple things going on with that. It was turned down by the voters, and for a myriad of reasons. It was a tough economy back then, and we were, I don't think the energy committee was prepared at that time to really engage the public with all the questions they had. But the thing is, I think the fact this is a historical district in here, roof, when you gotta replace the roof, you gotta dismantle them, and that's more labor involved. And we didn't even know the condition of the roof at the time. And so there was a couple issues pending, and I think the energy committee did a great service to the town by finding the right location. And it's all about location. And the thing is, someone talked about security. Well, at least 5 days a week, we're gonna have someone down always at the transfer station.
And then the gate's closed otherwise.
Exactly, and we can just, and now that we have an investment down there, we just add it to our, chief is still there, but we have the chief send another patrol down there on a more frequent basis, so that's not an issue. I hope that
Just
answers.
for the record, I am totally on board with this, I just was just curious.
Oh, we looked at everything, and I think it's, I told these gentlemen, I said, you gotta be prepared, that the public's gonna come in and like ask those tough questions. And I even told them, bring some backup support. Okay, any last question? Okay, go ahead.
I
ma'am.
do have one last question.
Sure.
Dan Zeller, School Street. We have solar panels on our barn roof, and this is sort of silly, but you did mention microinverters, so I'm assuming that every single panel has its own microinverter. So if a squirrel gets in there and builds a nest and chews through the wire like they did on one of ours, we won't lose the whole array, we'll just lose that one microinverter
Right,
and the power from that to wherever the
correct.
goes. Okay.
That one panel.
That one panel would go out, or whatever the squirrel chews.
Right.
Yeah, nothing below it or above it, just that. And the monitoring system would make that evident.
Right.
Not to mention, the mess.
Right.
The shavings on the ground from.
It's a lot easier to see when it's down on the ground.
That's true, probably.
Will
Yeah.
the question, will the squirrel survive?
Actually, probably, but unfortunately, probably you're less likely to see squirrels trying to make a nest behind this array, because it's just
That's
open,
true.
it's not sheltered by your roof.
It's open, you're
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
good. Be aware though.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go one more call for any last questions. If not, I'm gonna say thank you for coming in and share the information with your friends. But as I said, as Bob said and Dave said, the selectmen we're on board with this, and we're ready to make the commitment. And again, the option to buy, we'll probably address it at the town meeting as we create a capital reserve fund for it.
Great.
Great.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, next public hearing at
I know, that was very good question, because I always thought
Now we're bringing you in front of the town meeting with
That was a good point too.
Filled it out.
You wanna grab one of the
You don't have to be.
Yeah, see, I'm waiting.
Nice to see you. I knew I read
You know my tallies.
What's that?
You know my tallies.
Yes.
The lawyer said it's easier for me to move.
I recall. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Nice turnout. Washington, I live in Washington. We were like, planning board, but you got Thanks for
Yeah, I won't be here Thursday.
We missed you from.
Hey, Dave, I won't be here on Thursday.
Yeah, you move your instructions outside, please. Thank you. We got business to do.
Thank you. My pleasure. Appreciate everybody's
Okay, we got Linda next.
Linda, what you got?
Louis,
Make the chief do
First, I'd like to thank the board for agreeing to see me again tonight.
We didn't agree.
You didn't? I heard it was unanimous, y'all couldn't wait.
Yeah.
But I did want to revisit the topic of the budget line I had for the deputy town clerk hours. So I thanked you for seeing me, whether you agreed to or not. And I also want to thank the board for your consistent effort at being fiscally responsible for the residents. I know I appreciate it, and I'm sure they will appreciate it too. I also thought maybe I'd bring this up because in the long run it is fiscally responsible, and perhaps I can persuade you that it is in a different way. And when I presented my budget last month, I thought I communicated. You're not paying attention there.
You were communicating.
I thought I communicated the need for the increase in the deputy hours effectively. But I guess I didn't do such a great job of communicating. It's a skill I'm still working on. So I thought perhaps if I came up and explained a few other things to you or showed you a few other things, it would give you a better understanding. I'm going to start by giving you a little bit of history, not on deputy town clerks per se, because they've been around for a long time, but on some of the history of the deputies in Dunbarton, as far as their hours and the turmoil, lack of turmoil or whatever. I just found out about the change in the budget line yesterday afternoon, so I have not had a heck of a lot of time to do a bunch of research. But in 2008, my deputy was working 13 hours a week. That was in the budget. And even then, it wasn't enough hours, and that was over 10 years ago. It just wasn't enough hours. I found myself just trying to keep up. The point being that this is a position that has been understaffed for years. In 2014, there was, as you know, a major shift in the makeup of the Board of Selectmen. So I start off by being understaffed, and then I get to this big shift, and it was a very negative shift in the Board of Selectmen. In 2014 was also the year I hired Joe Marie as my deputy. In 2015, Joe Marie hadn't even been here a year. The Board of Selectmen took Joe Marie from my department and put her in the assessing office, leaving me with no deputy. They did offer to give me 200 and something hours a year for a deputy, which just would have been a huge disservice to everybody had that happened, because there's no way any deputy could function on 200 hours a year. Could function well. In 2000, so I went a year with no deputy after being understaffed for years and years. 2016, there was a petition warrant article to reinstate the deputy position. That did pass at town meeting,
2016?
2016. And that did pass at town meeting. When the petition was presented, and it was not my idea, a resident wanted to do it and came to me and said, I'd like to do this if you're okay with it. That resident suggested that maybe when I submit the petition, when he submitted the petition, maybe we not go for the number of hours that we had before, just to kind of get the deputy position back. To get it back and funded, and then, you know, after a while, you can work your way up to those hours, better hours again. So desperate to get a deputy, any backup at all, because I had no backup. I couldn't take a vacation unless I closed the office. I couldn't be sick unless I closed the office. Workshops, I had closed for everything. There was no coverage. And the public wasn't happy about it, and I was the one that heard about it when the office was closed, and it wasn't my fault. Anyway, the petition passed, hired Gary McCubbin as my deputy in 2016. He started, I think, in April, partway through the year. And his first year, as with all deputies, the first year there's a really intense training process to get them up to speed. So after a year, he's getting up to speed and it's starting to work out, and I'm not spending so much time training. And as you know, and had mentioned in the workshop, so I guess it's safe to mention again, he did develop those health issues. And once again, he wasn't available.
Linda,
So-
how many hours were approved at the town meeting in 16? You gave us hours in 08, and then nothing in 14, nothing in 15.
Somehow I'm back up to 12. Back up to 12, and I don't remember if the petition was for 8 hours and then I went to 12 to bring it up.
So you're
Sorry,
at
David,
12,
I just.
You're at 12 in
Maybe
2019.
2016, the petition, with petition warrant articles in that.
2018, you're at 12 hours now.
Right, but 10 years prior to that, I had more hours.
You had
That's
13
10
hours.
years, yeah, 13 hours.
Okay, that's what I was
So,
trying to get
okay.
at. We were missing the hours of all those years you're talking about.
Okay. Oh, well, I tried to, and I was gonna end with, every year I attempted to increase the hours, and every year either, we had one selectman whose favorite thing at budget time was, I want everybody to cut their budget by 5%, you remember who that is, Lean? 5%. And there's not many places in my budget to cut. You know, everything except salary is statutory in my budget, so it's the only place that could be cut. So anyway, I've wound up having years and years of being understaffed, no staff. It's just been kind of tumultuous, so I thought maybe rather than have you just look at last year or the last 2 years, I wanted to give you a picture further back to give you that. And also, now if I hand you these, you can't spend all your time reading them, you gotta listen to me too. Promise?
Gonna need bigger font.
Sorry. I have here the statute that covers the deputy town clerk. I'm sure you've seen it before, but this is just a little refresher. Always try to make you a copy. You're welcome. When I presented my budget, I also gave you a 5-year comparison, and that was like a November to November, so you would know how much not only the dollars increased, but the volume of transactions had increased that passed through my office. I thought I'd include 2008 in here, just because I brought up 2008 when talking about my deputy. So, this kind of ties in with the history of the deputy. Hope is my 11th deputy since I became clerk in 1997. 11 deputies. That statute that I gave you requires deputies to be qualified in the same manner as the town clerk, not just for residency, but shall perform all the duties, so that they can perform those duties in the absence of the town clerk. So that's by statute. So for every deputy, no matter if it's Dunbarton or anywhere in the state, there's a significant amount of time invested in their training. what they get at the DMV for an occasional workshop, through DMV, through Vital Records, Secretary of State, it's supplemented by what they learn in the office. There's no way that any of those state agencies can possibly cover every single scenario during a little training session or workshop. The training is what comes from working one-on-one with the town clerk. Most part-time deputies throughout the state take a minimum of a year of shadowing the town clerk just to get to the point where they can handle most motor vehicle transactions on their own. When it gets complicated by the constant changes in the law, it's already a difficult position. It's not just motor vehicle law, it's also election law, vital records. There's so many laws that we have to know. So given the fact that I've had 11 deputies in 22 years, almost half of that time that they've worked has been devoted to training. So that when I'm training them, it's taken away from my duties. If I work by myself, I can get a lot more done than I can if I'm training somebody. Always takes away from what you're doing. And I've been falling so behind for so many years, some days I feel like I'm never gonna catch up. Truly feel that way. Everything else gets put on the back burner. So the faster I can get a deputy up to speed with motor vehicle, the sooner the deputy can learn the other aspects of the position. It's not all about cars. There's other things as well. So if I have a deputy here, primarily for motor vehicle registration, it doesn't leave much time for all the other things they need to learn. There's just not much opportunity. People don't come in for marriage licenses during the deputy's 12-hour schedule. They don't come in for a copy of a birth certificate during the deputy's 12-hour schedule. They come in when the office is open, when they can get here. And it's hit or miss as to whether or not the deputy can get any experience in the other areas that they need to have that experience. Unfortunately, when I was on vacation during Christmas week, Hope had to turn away somebody who needed a marriage license. She had to turn away somebody who needed a copy of a vital record. She hasn't been here long enough to tackle that yet. There's just no way. So we had to turn away a resident, and that was horrible. They had to go to another town got the revenue, and Hope didn't get the experience because there's probably the first or second person who's come in for something like that during her time that she's here. So let's forget about motor vehicles for a minute, and we're gonna focus on something else that, an aspect of the town clerk or deputy clerk position. So I'm gonna give you an example, one that you can relate to. A month or two ago, the board wanted to appoint Lean as an alternate for the trustee of the trust funds. So if Hope was the clerk, or somebody else was the clerk, who's only been here a couple years and only part-time, they would have dutifully drawn up those appointment papers, handed them for you to sign, and sworn in Lean as an alternate for a trustee of the trust funds. But because of the experience that I have, and this is not, blowing my own horn, but it's because of the years of experience that I've accumulated, I knew enough to question whether or not that was legal by statute. So I researched it, and I found what I thought was the answer, but I wanted to confirm it. So I knew where to go to get the confirmation, and that was through the Secretary of State's office, and the answer confirmed my research. A non-resident cannot hold the position of an alternate. So had I not done that, you guys would have performed an illegal act, and you would have been called on it. So part of what the deputy does is not just wait on people at a counter. We work as a team, we help one another out, we learn other things to back one another. That's part of her job, and it can't happen on 12 hours a week. The only deputy I ever knew, the only deputy I ever had, who would have known to question that action, known where to look for the answer, and known who to confirm the answer with, was Irene Tallheimer, the cook that trained me. That she's the one who invested her time in me so that I would know my job and how to protect my people. not just you, but the residents of town. So it's not just about the dollars and the number of transactions, although I've given you those figures. I thought that with only one election in 2019, from a budgetary standpoint, it would be an opportune time to increase the deputy line, rather than increase it on a year where we have 3 or 4 elections in 1 year. Just seemed a better way to do it. Having a qualified deputy is not a convenience, it's a necessity. If I get hit by a bus, have to resign for health reasons, win the lottery, decide to retire, I'm going to be 65 this year, it's imperative that this town have a qualified deputy to take over. To date, I have not had a deputy with such qualifications, not even close, because of the limited amount of time that they've spent trying to learn. Hope has what it takes to become a great town clerk for the people of town, and I'm asking you to invest in Dunbarton's future. Dunbarton that is growing. I'm asking you to invest in our future by investing in her. And that is my case.
You don't even wanna speak to the couple $100,000 worth of more transactions you have?
Nope, they speak for themselves.
They do, but the public doesn't get to hear them, but
That's in the, that's in,
in
if you wanna,
2018,
yeah, go ahead.
the motor vehicle permits issued were 716,000. In 2008, it was 475,000, so.
But the prices of vehicles
Right,
changed
you gotta
too.
forget the revenues,
You know,
go to the
this-
transaction.
Go to the-
This may be a lot of
Yeah, you got
information,
that
but
right
when
down
you
below.
dissect it, you know, over time,
Right.
it doesn't really mean a lot.
And that's why I
Right,
put the
okay.
number of transactions in there, because that's people standing in front of me, that's demands on my time.
Wouldn't be
But there's several times I've come in with Hope's working by herself, so it's not like she's getting training. In increasing your budget by a third for that office, we put some monies in for additional hours that you could manage if you wanted to. I just thought that there's no elections other than the town election this year. And so giving you additional monies to move around so that she can cover when you're not here, or even if you are here, the dollars are in there, but it brings you closer to that number of you know, it's, well, nonetheless, it's probably, you were looking for what, almost 6,000, a little under 6,000?
Oh, don't throw numbers at me at this hour.
The deputy line?
How about just the hours?
What was the
15
increase?
15 hours, I think you were asking for.
And we brought it down to how many?
12.
Well, but we threw,
Plus
there's some
the-
monies in there,
Flexible money. where-
flexible money for her to use. And so I thought you would have time to give us an assessment, because to be real honest, as you said, she's picking it up pretty quick, number one. And you'd have a chance to make an assessment, because she probably is gonna be there more time than, unfortunately, than Gary was there. And then it took you a while to get another person in place, and then you lost that person. And now you have someone that looks like they're gonna be a constant, you know? And so it gives us a chance to look at it and have you come with a real number that reflects the time needed. Because I have to say that if you look at some of the, and I'm gonna use not municipalities, because they're all appointed, but in the different towns, and actually I sat on the New Hampshire Workforce Opportunity Investment Council last week with a meeting, and I wish I asked the selectman what town he was from, because we were talking, and he didn't. They don't have a deputy tax collector,
Tax collector or town clerk?
a town clerk, they don't have a deputy town clerk.
Why don't they?
I have no idea.
Okay,
We
that
didn't
would
get
be the
into that
question to ask,
discussion.
yeah, that
We
would
didn't
be the
get into
question
that
to ask.
discussion, you know.
I can tell you why it's difficult to get one, because of the qualifications required, and Mike was on interviewing with me when we hired. A deputy by statute has to be a resident of the town, so you're automatically limiting your pool to Dunbarton.
In the
Can't
number of
choose from
hours.
anywhere else. The
And
number
probably
of
the number
hours,
of
the
hours.
flexibility is, it's a small town, so we can only give you a few hours, but you need to be able to work 40 hours when the clerk is on vacation. Who in this little tiny pool of Dunbarton has that kind of flexibility? So we're so limited on who we can pull, but that could be why they don't have one. And I'm just
I don't know,
speculating.
we're just talking about different instances that they have in their community, you know?
But we're still back to, you're saying that Hope is here and sometimes she's here by herself. It is up to me how to train. Sometimes the best training a deputy can get is when I walk away. Because when I'm there, the first thing a deputy does is turn around to me. So
I
I'm leaving
understand
them
that,
on their own,
right?
and I'm right here,
I
I'm a
understand,
phone call away.
Linda, I
Yeah.
understand that, but she's brand new, and sometimes the problems they're gonna have are gonna be when you walk away.
I'm a phone call away, or I'm right outside the door.
Linda, I don't think, the board as a whole, I like to speak for us as a whole, we weren't really against the 15-hour concept, but there's no evidence that suggests you really need it, based upon what we see.
Right.
And so over the last several years, you've worked with significantly less qualified people. We've had some people who were deputies who did not work out as deputies because of whether it be competence, they didn't want to work there anymore, whether it be personality. You can put them all together, but you never had a full year where you had a full deputy even for 12 hours.
I, in 20 years, have not had a full year where I've had a competent deputy. So
Right,
the
and
point
so-
I'm trying to make
so-
is I'm getting behind her and
So
behind her and
what
behind
we're
her.
trying to make is, we're gonna let this 1 year go by and see how this works out. And the thing is, we weren't really, but let's see how a 12-hour week works out for the full year. Instead of just, half the time, you didn't even have a deputy there. And now you do, you have a competent one, we are so happy that is. But the thing is, we wanna see a year goes by, and we'll have to have this conversation again next year and say, I really need, maybe come in and say, I only need 10 hours, she's so good, I only need 10 hours, so we can cut it. But the thing is, we don't know that, because you never had a full-time deputy, and I will say full-time, a full 12-hour deputy since it started. And that's the challenge we have.
And that's why I'm giving you the history, is to show you that I haven't had this and I am behind. It's not just a deputy to wait on the counter for 12 hours a week, it's a deputy to help start pulling me out of the quagmire.
Agreed, but things, now you have someone.
But if all she does is do car registrations,
Then it frees you up to do other stuff.
then
So the thing is, we're not against it, but the thing is, but we are definitely not against it, but the thing is, we wanna see how a year goes when you have the help that you were promised since the town meeting, when it was approved. You've never had that help, now you have it, let's see how it works out.
I think that's why the additional monies were put in, so you would have some monies you could manage also for flexibility.
Did you understand the additional money part, Linda?
I haven't had time to look at
Okay,
that. I was really more
I'm thinking
intent
there
on
was
having
close
you
to
understand.
1,500, wasn't it, Bob, of additional
It
money?
was
Was it that or was it
December
20?
2200.
Yeah, I think 22 or 2400.
Yeah,
It's really
so-
having
So
more.
whether you use that for deputies' hours, or for vital records, or historical records, you have some monies there that you can juggle within your department to help you through, so it may not be in the hours, but if you did the calculation out dollar-wise, you might even have a little bit more. I didn't do the math.
Well, I know you're looking at vital records and other things in my budget. Those are statutory. I can't pull from them.
I know you can't,
We're-
I wanna make sure you had time to work on that. Okay, and by having the deputy there, which I'm
But she's still
100%.
training. Just because she's a body at a counter doesn't mean she can do everything. She, several times today, had to turn and ask me about something.
Which is fine, that's part of the training.
So I'm focused on pulling out of my quagmire, and I get interrupted. So now I'm back in my quagmire again, trying to refocus and regroup. It doesn't help. It's not the help you think it is, and that was my point tonight, really trying to get you to understand what the position entails, and to get you to understand that if she's gonna be here for 12 hours a week, most of her time's gonna be waiting the counter and doing car registrations.
Which will
Not
free,
gonna give her time.
but it will still free you up.
But it's not about freeing me up, it's about the requirement that says, shall be qualified in the same manner as the clerk.
Again, I'd just like to see where a year goes and what she picks up and what she gets accustomed to, and then you can come with an accurate number and say, I need 4 hours more a week for the person, or,
You've never had a year with 12 hours. with a full,
I had 13 at one time.
No,
And
but
it
you
wasn't
did-
enough,
but
and that
you-
was 10 years ago, and it wasn't enough then. Just wasn't enough.
but you never had it.
But you also said the person wasn't as competent as this
None of
girl
them.
is, so, I mean,
I got lucky, but then let's look at this, as competent as she is, do you wanna let her get away?
well,
Because, well,
We've lost a lot of people along the way, and for a myriad of reasons.
right, and quite frankly, I'm getting tired of training people. Did I tell you I'm gonna be 65 this year?
I'm not gonna say anything about age.
It's just,
I resemble
you
everyone.
know what I mean, it's just this is for the town, this isn't so I can, have an additional coffee break, this is,
No, but it's a choice
it's
too.
not a convenience,
It's
it's
a
a
choice too
necessity.
for you. The thing is that you're an elected official, you don't have to run. The thing is, you're here because of your willingness to run and be elected. I mean, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, or in the last election, we could have elected someone else, and we could have elected someone with less experience, and we'd be like pulling our hair out now.
And you guys would have appointed, everybody for the wrong stuff. And-
Right, and the
and
thing is,
it's-
but it's a team effort, and the thing is, I agree with Bob that the thing is, I think if she works for a full year, and you finally have 1 year of record with her, we're there 12 hours, and you say, you may come back to us and say, I doubt it, but you will, maybe, I only need 10 hours for her to work, because it's been such a great year, but we've only had months, we don't even have a year under our belt.
Well, I did listen to the audio, and I understand that there's room for compromise, so.
I think
I would
Dave
like to at least suggest
gave you the compromise with, we have discretionary funds in there, and those just funds are to see how you use them. Dave kind of pushed that issue with us, and we
I
came to
haven't had
consensus.
time to see how that would
Let me
work
just
out.
see, 3 times 52.
I haven't had time to see how, it can't limit to just, Linda's got 4 weeks vacation, so it's hopes 12 hours a week, plus 4 weeks vacation, plus this workshop, plus that workshop. Once again, if I get sick, if whatever, then you as the board would have to understand that you would
Well,
have to fund her for more.
Now, Linda, I just wanna go back to the discretion hours, cause I think it's kind of overlooked a little bit. We just did some quick math, and it just about makes up for all 3 hours that we pulled from your budget, or, the board pulled from that budget that day. And after 1 year, I think that, this board here has been a pretty, flexible board as far as making sure that departments have what they need to continue, and, I wanna say that this board, I think, will look at it real hard, and make sure that if you need more hours, then you come to us with a good description. And I can understand your frustration, because when you've been working with limited resources all these years, you get, more and more backed up, and you feel like there's this weight always on your shoulders, and it puts a lot of additional stress on you. So don't think that we're slighting that, because I talked with the board members about that. And one of my things is, I wanna make sure that some of our vital records and historical records are better kept within this town, because,
I do
We-
plan to address that too.
we've had some things that were set aside over the years that, maybe should have been kept, and, those records, as we lose them, they just don't ever come back, so. I'm hoping that 1 year, you'll have enough deputy hours, and we had another, department this last year where everybody left within the group. And we had no deputies or no backups or no, additional people on those boards to take over. So we know what it's like to go through a year without anybody there with any knowledge. And I would like your department not to be one of those departments, cause there's much more involved in your department, obviously, so.
And the good news is you don't have a revolving door this time of deputies. You have someone that you're investing in now, and she's catching on quickly, and I think she's working, from my interactions with her, she registered my car in like seconds, it was great. And, I think.
Straight renewal, right?
It
No
was.
drought required.
And so I just think, we gotta continue to train her. The thing is, I think she's gonna be, hopefully a pleasant surprise compared to the revolving door we've had in the past. And the thing is, I think this is almost a record. How long has she been on board now? Since September? It's almost a record.
My frustration comes from years of former boards. Many years when it was very personal. So you'll have to excuse me, because after a while, it just always feels personal, even though I know with you it is not. I know that you as a board are trying your darndest to watch the dollars. And that's why I thought if I explained this to you a little bit more, you had a better understanding of my department, which by listening to the audio, I know that you don't, and it's not that you're not bright, you don't work it, you don't live it. You go by conjecture, you go by people's opinion, you go by other things, you don't live it. And I do. And so I don't just pull numbers out of the air. I've been trying to get that position up. I will let Hope know that this is your decision, and it is my wish that she stays. I don't know, I haven't discussed with her what will happen if this changes. It's asking a lot. It continues to ask a lot of me. I'm really to the point where I am getting exhausted. You can't train people year after year after year and not have it wear on you. It's just time. So the less time she gets on a weekly basis, the more I'm gonna have to invest in training. If she's here for a block of time, she can evolve with that training, and then she can work on those records that need to be done, the boxes and boxes of papers that need to be sorted.
I hope you gave her more hours last year, because remember we said that.
Yeah, it
she
was-
said- We
yes.
said, give her as many hours as you can afford, because she much more than 12 hours.
I said carte
Until
blanche
December.
on the hours, but
Right.
she has a life too.
Oh, I understood,
So-
understood. But the thing is, it's, we hope, I'm glad you did do that, because it probably ramped her up a little faster.
It did. It
And
made
in
me-
fact, gave you an insight to how she's gonna work in the future
It
too.
did very much, but still, I was seeing, oh, finally, I'm gonna see the bottom of this pile of papers, and so I'm not seeing that with this. I just go to one more thing, because I know you folks have other things after me. As I mentioned, I did listen to the audio tape, so I'm going to come up with kind of a rebuttal. It's not sour grapes, but it's really to give you a better understanding. Some of the comments that you made it clear to me that some things aren't clear to you. So in no special order, Mike, you had mentioned, now that I don't have the flag duty, the flag
Yeah.
duty,
Yes,
the flag duty
right,
is not a duty, so to speak. I've been on flag notification for years. Anybody can get a flag notification.
I get it.
It's welcome to it's for the public.
oh, absolutely,
And
but the
I
thing is,
just, because I see the flag from where I sit, I'll go, oh, you know what, I got that notification, and that flag's not up, and so I'll just let somebody know. It's not a duty, and it only happens a few times a year, so didn't want you to think that was part of my job description, it's just something to do.
it goes back to like, one of your other job descriptions which you dropped, I'll bring it up now if you don't wanna bring it. I
Welfare.
thought, was the welfare.
That's
system.
next on my list for
And I'll
you.
talk about that. I thought for my first 2 years here, the lack of visibility of the welfare director and the deputy, the lack of visibility we've had was a disservice to the town. And I think that the fact that you let it go when the director left was probably a good thing. Because we were able to bring some light where there was no light. And I heard accusations, I talked to the Salvation Army director at length about the problems we've had in the past, and a lot of it dealt with lack of visibility. And you were the deputy, so kind of like you were indicted with that group. But you let it go, and I salute you for that, because it forced us as a select board to do the right thing in the sense that find another director, advertise for a director, interview it, put our expectations down. Look at that welfare manual, which we didn't have one for, I think it was 10 years old. When we looked at that, just the manual for our position. There were so many problems with that I was glad you stepped down so we could at least react to it. And so I think the town is better off today by you stepping down doing it. And it took something off your plate, and I have no problem with that.
Well, that was, I was the deputy, and as a deputy, I had to defer to her. I did not have the authority to override anything. I didn't have the authority, and I didn't have the knowledge. And she just said, I'm handling it. I did do some, deliveries with Hannaford's or whoever.
Yeah.
I did a lot of paperwork, I did things with the Salvation Army, I took care of emailing back and forth what needed to be done. But I didn't want the position, I just did it as a favor, and I had pretty much told her that, and then when she stepped, or didn't step up, and,
We couldn't even
and you
communicate with her.
approached me, I just didn't want it to begin with, and I was not, as far as I know, there were not many requests for assistance, because I would have seen those. So as far as whatever input was from the Salvation Army, that was between her and them.
Okay.
And I
Well,
very
I'm
little-
just glad it was taken off your plate.
But I just, and it's also off my plate, but it was not on my plate as town clerk. It
But-
was totally separate, whatever I did was done, you know what?
Linda, you're
on my
working in
own
the
time.
office. When someone comes in, when you had me come in and sign checks, you're processing Salvation Army. It may be as a town clerk, but you're using those hours while you're in the office.
Doing the vouchers and stuff,
Absolutely.
okay.
And so I'm saying, it
No, I
gave you
took
more
them
time.
because you were here, I mean,
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
And-
absolutely.
right.
But the thing is, what I'm saying is less time, one less thing to worry about. One less thing to occupy your time with. So that's a good thing.
right, and I did that because you were treasurer and you were here and it was convenient for
Absolutely.
you, and I would have gone to your house if need be.
No,
But as far as, other things, taking applications, I mean, all the employees here take applications and then shuffle them down to the proper mailbox. It wasn't anything that I did,
Okay.
So that covered welfare, flag notifications, not a part of my duties, and things that are and aren't part of duties of the
Right.
clerk.
But I
So
thought,
one of
I
the
thought one
things-
thing that I thought the select board, as a group, I was in awe of when you told me that during the elections, for example, selectmen wouldn't help you at all. They'd leave the election late and
Right,
say,
they would
have
abandon
a
you."
nice day. And
Right.
to me, that was, to leave you there after a long day, we were all there at the same time,
Right.
to leave you deserted there, I thought, the board, we'd like to be there, but hey, that's not, we did what we call the right thing.
And that was all part of the years and years of just
Right.
having to carry this on my own.
Believe me, our job here is not to make life more difficult, it's to make it smoother for the town and for you. And there's no reason why one person has to suffer.
Right, thank you. As far as duties go, when you're talking about things, off my plate or whatever, the flag took no time at all. Having you sign checks, actually, I think I would show you what they were, have you sign them, and sometimes you sign them while I was doing my other stuff, because I multitask. But there are things here that we do that aren't necessarily our duties. I've been known to shovel the front walkway, not my duty. Pick stuff off the floor, it's not my duty. I run the vacuum cleaner from time to time, it's not my duty. But we just do what we do.
Understood.
We're supposed to be a team. All right, now, moving off of Mike and going to Bob, because I'm back to the audio. You had mentioned that someone else said Hope is as quick, if not quicker than the clerk, and I think I addressed
You
this
mentioned
earlier.
that to us.
So,
You said that
She
she
can-
was just as fast, if not faster than you
Right.
are with registering
right, and
vehicles.
I just wanted to make it clear that when it's something that she's done a few times, she is like lightning. She is good. But there are things that I still have to call motor vehicle for, because even in all the time I've been here, I haven't come across a certain combination, a certain scenario, and I need to call. So, I just wanted to make sure that, just because she's here and she's fast on renewals, so you said it was somebody else, I didn't realize you were commenting on something I had said. And I also, you had said about freeing up my time, and I told you it's not about freeing up my time, it's about learning the position. I talked to you about I didn't just pull numbers from the sky, and that I had been trying to increase the hours almost every budget time, unless I knew it was just a ridiculous even attempt. There were some boards that you just never even bothered asking for a half a cent more, because it was a waste of time to go through the calculations, which is why some years I didn't ask for an increase, because it would be fruitless. I was trying to increase the hours, and the lack of success usually came down to budget cuts by former boards, or a disagreeable board, or a board with an agenda. And maybe fate intervened until it was the right time, and I just felt that this was the right time. And one more item, and that was vital records, and that was conversation involving Bob and Dave. So vital records, there's a difference in what Donna does every week. I don't have people come in here every week and do, Donna does things that have been donated to the town, been gifted to the town, old documents, somebody's cleaning out the attic, they find some old pictures, whatever. Those are not vital records, David, I believe you refer to them as vital records. What she does is great, she's a volunteer, and it's great that the board is throwing some money into the budget to preserve them, because some of the things that are gifted to us are really wonderful, one of a kind. Nobody has seen those pictures, but they are not vital records. Vital records are in the custody of and under the control of the town clerk. They cannot be accessed by the public unless there are very specific circumstances. So that's the difference in a vital record and what Donna Dunn does with the historic preservation. I think you might be thinking of the things that the town clerk is required to preserve, things that are generated by the town, generated due to work from the town, minutes to meetings, appointment papers, things like that.
Changes to descriptions of roads, all of those records need to be kept by the town clerk.
If they're in the minutes of a meeting, yes, then they would be. So that's not a vital record, that is a different kind of record, not to be confused with a vital. So these little things that, you know, you guys put these statements out, I just want to clarify.
I
It's
said
not to-
vital and historical records.
So it's not to pick on you, it's just to just wanna make sure that you understand. It tells me that you don't necessarily
Well,
understand.
the thing is,
that
I
part of
think
it.
if you ran into a crisis this year,
Mhm.
I'll give you a crisis, Hope leaves, her husband moves and they have to relocate. Thing is, those 12 hours will probably not be enough, and we probably have to add more hours in there. One, to train, we realize that, it'll be the same scenario as you're going through, and it's gonna be a challenge again. But that's what we're trying to avoid. And the thing is, by just throwing hours, you just can't throw out money at a problem. And the thing is, we gotta see how she works for a year. You may come in and say, I need more time. I trained her the entire year, she's still trained, or she's incompetent, or whatever, but at least you have her for a whole year now. Now, that's what we're asking for, it's just see how it works, see how it functions in your office with a year under your belt.
You can't blame me for pleading my case.
No, I don't blame you at
You
all.
know, the way I look at it, it gives you a year to get an educated evaluation as to what it would take for hours. And that's why, what Dave recommended, we plug in some monies so you have additional monies. I know if you're sick a day, I see her there sometimes working by herself, so it's not like you're gonna miss a day of not being there to watch her. At least she'll be able to do something, get something out of the way. But with a year's time at looking at it, I think it's a better assessment of what you're gonna need for hours, rather than, you know, I looked at it that you're picking arbitrarily 33% increase in hours is gonna make up for some of the work there, and I just need an educated evaluation.
That's really just also kind of based on not having that increase in hours for over a decade. A decade, I've seen other departments double, quadruple, whatever, and I'm stymied, and I'm trying to get unstymied.
I think the fact that we will have these hours, you have a person to take those hours, the full 12 hours, will be all revealed. It'll either be too much, which I doubt, but it may be in need of it, but we can make a decision that way. And you can come back with, you may ask for 18 next year based upon what you've got done, what you didn't get done. Or you may say 12 is plenty.
But I will guarantee you, and once again, this has to do with what you know about what I do and what I know about what I do. The 12 hours that Hope is here, if there's a customer that's coming in for a registration, that's gonna be what she does primarily. And it's not gonna have her here enough to do other things, to learn. The person who comes in for the marriage license who doesn't come in during her 12 hours, her 12-hour slot. So it kind of shortchanges what she can learn.
But there's no guarantee she's gonna get it in 13 hours either.
No, there's definitely no guarantee.
And
But
that additional money in there, I guess you
probabilities-
could use for some of that training if you wanted, or for your vital records if you wanted. You know, you could come down to this end of the building and say, oh, for 3 hours I'm gonna work on this. If there's a question that comes up, after that time I'll come in, we'll get all your questions answered or something to that effect, but I guess the board is probably sticking with their hours, but we also gave that additional money, so it kind of
It's
know.
kind of a litmus test too. If you use the money and you find that you didn't have enough for the hours, then you can come back to us and tell us how it didn't work. And if you don't use it all, that gives us an idea that there was extra money in there, you know, but I guess till I see proof in the pudding, it's kinda hard, Linda, to say this is what it takes to cure a problem.
Because would you say from 2008, you haven't really had a deputy, a regular deputy?
Since 2008, I've had some that have been here almost 4 years and still didn't get it.
Right, and so, I would say, let's just, be grateful for what we have, see how it works out. And I think we're gonna be flexible enough next year to revisit it and be open about it.
And I can see the amount of transactions and the dollars that are going through there. And regardless of whether they're newer vehicles and all that, the transactions don't lie, and there are a lot more transactions. So we'll also look at those transactions next year to make sure that, you know, if we do bump this thing up, that, you know, we try and get it to a point where you can manage that department better, cause you're right, there are a lot of departments that have growth over these last 10 years, and your department has been flat or less than normal, so.
Well, thank you for listening to me. I hope you have a better understanding of what I do. I'd love to invite you into my department to watch us work. Unfortunately, that would violate all kinds of privacy laws, and I can't have that.
And you know, as a board, we're a fairly young board too, and we're still learning, so as we learn more about your department, you know, there's chances are that we'll be more understanding to some of those needs that you have, and we appreciate your time as our clerk.
Thank you, and I do appreciate you listening to me, and I do have some constructive criticism. I only,
More?
yeah, just one more thing. Was it Columbo that says just one more thing? When you folks make a change to somebody's budget, I only happened upon, I just like found out, nobody officially notified me, so had I not found out about this, I would have gone on happily having Hope work 16 hours a week, only to be in the face, you know, when a lot of that was chewed up. As a courtesy to any department who presents a budget, if you make a change, would you just have Lean or just somebody notify them?
We can do that in the future. Some people sit in the budget meeting, the chief was in there.
Chief, you were cut 10% this year, did you realize that?
No. Don't worry, he's staying here to make sure.
No, I think that's a good idea.
And he's wearing a gun.
I learned early on in.
So I don't always get to read the minutes right
Sure.
away, because sometimes weeks go by and this is time sensitive, and I might not have seen it until.
That's not a bad suggestion. I think we could definitely send out a little notice to them or whatever.
No,
We have other requests for increases too, so we're gonna, you're not the only one, and the thing is, we gotta stand firm on a few things.
And I have to fight for what I believe.
I have no problem with that. I applaud supervisors and people who work, who speak up for their employees and their departments, so I applaud you for that. I may not agree, but the thing is, I think we're still flexible enough where it can be easily addressed next year. We are not throwing a brick wall, we are very flexible. And I think next year might be, give us all the data we need, and especially you as the manager.
And I will take a look at the number that you've given me, because my focus was more on the verbal understanding of the plan. But I will take a look at the numbers, and if I find that they need to be tweaked, may I come back and offer?
Absolutely, yes, we won't say no.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Linda.
On that note,
We on to now.
changes to the budget. I'm gonna go for one more request here. It was a transfer station. If you see the email, gentlemen.
Yeah, I received that.
It's right on top there, right?
Yes.
You know, I noticed he brought that amount down that he had in there, but he still has monies in there.
It's got 10K.
Yes,
For the year.
I thought that,
I would rather,
instead of adjusting this, I'd rather look at it just like we're doing with Linda's and not adjust this budget.
No, I don't, I feel the same way. I
Yeah.
thought that, you know what,
We
he's
do
got,
have some monies that come in as revenues, if we needed to look at something through the year.
but he's got 10K in his maintenance.
yeah,
And,
for that purpose.
and when he gets towards the end of the year, if he's used that up, then we can find ways to juggle money around.
Yeah,
But catching us before he's even touched a dollar in maintenance money,
yeah, I thought there was a good balance in there, and I think that, you know,
So what Bob is saying, Dave, in case you're not, you might be aware of it, you can move money within
I
the
know.
budget.
Yeah.
If someone comes to you and says, I had an unexpected and I need to, you can move the money from another line into
Yep.
that line, so.
yeah, so that's why I'm in agreement with, just.
I think we have
holding firm on that.
consensus.
you know, we'll stick with what we have. And then if we run into trouble at the end of the year, well, then
We'll look at it.
we'll look
that
at it
time.
and do what we have to do.
Yep, I'm in agreement with that.
Okay, that's good. Changes to the budget, Lean is working on her documents. She got an updated expenditure sheet, so revenues last year, our expenditures went up a little bit, so we had less in reserve, not reserve, but less in surplus.
So last week when we met, I had mentioned that the excess revenue and the funds lapping from the budget was at 302,000. It's come down to $300,012. So, just so the, no, it's not.
No.
But these numbers will fluctuate
Yep,
just a
and
tiny
they're gonna
bit,
do a little bit more.
right?
Now, my thought is, guys, cause we talked about this, if you can calculate our number out on these drafts, when you see those changes until we sign the final one,
Yeah,
to maybe move it from 255 to 257 and change our rainy day fund so that we keep this at zero.
Oh, yeah, I agree, no, yeah.
Agreement as a board with that?
so,
Yeah.
Instead of doing 255, if you need to go to 257 or 258, to keep the zero at our tax
Great.
rate. You know, like right now, we're negative 20 cents.
correct.
For the year.
Okay,
So,
so,
you know, keep it zeroed out with these small increases we're seeing come in from the
okay,
2018 expenditures
Or revenues.
or revenue.
right, cause now we've dropped down to 45,000 lapsing to the general
Right,
fund.
right.
Okay, I see what
So
you're
just
saying.
adjust that a little bit and make it work that way, and we'll just do the rainy day fund.
A little bit less.
Yeah.
A little bit, which is fine, as long as we're putting some into it, that's my concern. Okay, and so, that's a work in progress, and when do we have to sign those?
Well, we're coming up quick. Our budget hearing is scheduled for the 7th. I may as well speak on it right now, cause the remainder of the meeting, I think, is basically mine. I've been approached by a resident of the town who has served, 4 years of non-active duty, in the military and is petitioning, will petition the board to, put this warrant article on the, warrant. And it's my job to make sure that the warrant that's written is written properly. So I've gotten the information, the language from the assessor, and I prepared a 4-page,
Do we have a copy?
it's in the basket there somewhere. It's all this paper clip with a big, thick paper clip. Did you bring it?
Yes, I think I did.
Right there.
Right there.
Okay, so that
This is
one
the warrant,
person
yeah.
is requesting that I assist him to get the proper language so that he can approach the board and petition the voters for a warrant article.
If you recall, I brought this up a little while back,
2016.
2016 I brought this up, and it was, the board did not do anything at the time. But they expanded the RSA of state of New Hampshire expanded the amount of credit, the qualifications, so you don't have to serve in a wartime area, or zone, or time frame. You can actually serve, if you've served in the service at all.
More than 90 days.
More than 90 days,
Yeah.
you can be eligible for the same credit. It was kinda like tabled at the time, because it was only.
Is there an age record to that?
No.
No, so it's not like once you're over 80 or.
No, if you.
So the language, I had written up the language for such a warrant. Lean found it, what I wrote up in 2016, so it made it easy. But the thing is, he's gotta come up with 25 signatures. She's got the language, I think we embrace it. because
I've
it's a-
already informed Linda that we'll have a warrant article that she'll have to verify voters' signatures.
Right. And so it's gonna impact our budget because it would reduce a group of people or veterans who did not serve in the wartime zone or wartime time period, give them the credit for $500, like equal to other wartime veterans.
Yeah.
I had spoken to Gary McCubbin about that, and he wasn't in favor
Right.
at the time, you know, when they had this Sunday breakfasts over at the McCubbins for a while, because of the church. We talked about that one Sunday, and it was his opinion, he wasn't in favor of that, so. That's the
So
only
it's
reason,
$500.
I think that's why we didn't go forward with yours.
Credit per year.
Same thing, yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at the second page,
Is it
current,
split by the different, tax bills or?
no, it's just, what happens, Dave, is we set the tax,
Yeah,
amount, then we, add back in the revenue that we've lost from dispersing the $500, which right now is at like $62,000, and then we set the tax rate. So it's
because they're saying that they apply for it in April
Mhm.
of that year,
that's
so.
right, so this would
it'd
not
be
go
on
into
the
effect
second-
until
second year.
next year, and then anyone interested would have to apply and meet the deadline of the 15th.
So we wouldn't know the impact
And-
until
The following year.
following.
Right, so annually, we'll take veterans off, add veterans on. There's actually one in their board's basket that was handed to us for a request to apply and get the credit. And he did qualify, and the assessor reviewed it, so they're going to sign that. We just had someone sell their home, so you have to take that credit off because it doesn't belong to the home, goes to, with the veteran. So it's a constant floating number, not by a lot, maybe $1,000, $2,000. But with this will add,
Is it, because it adds, because it expands the eligibility criteria.
Yeah,
Right.
substantial.
So the thing is, but that would be in front of the voters. The voters would have to determine that.
right, so
Yeah.
when I come up with your final warrant, this will be added to the end of the warrant, of this petition warrant.
Okay, anything else, Lean, from you?
Well, what's in your,
I get mailbox next.
yeah, only that, the next to final stages of going through the budget process is filling out the paperwork that's required to post with your warrant, and those are forms by the Department of Revenue, the MS 636. I've got, a draft, where it's partially or, mostly complete, and, needs to be reviewed with comments back from the DRA, so I'm just waiting for that. And,
And just mentioned about the warrant, about the warrant language.
yeah, also, what I noticed when I was entering the current warrants is the template that the Department of Revenue uses, can I just take a peek at that?
Sure.
And this is an option that the board can, decide on. The template that they typically use, for example, is, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum $40,000 to be added to the fire department emergency vehicle capital reserve fund previously established for this purpose, period. We also add, and as summarized by the capital improvements plan. So the board can choose to stay with the template, you can keep it the way it is. It's self-explanatory to the voter.
I
by
like that, I
including-
like that fact, because the, you know, that capital improvements committee meets every so often, and
Yeah.
when they do meet, if they've, you know, found a need from the voters, it's nice that if there is a capital improvement fund,
Mhm.
that it's stated that they've at least worked on it.
Yeah,
I think it's beneficial,
okay, I
They
just
have the
wanted
shorter
to
or they
let
have
you know
the
that
longer one.
Right, it has more information.
Because if you don't have that on there, you'll know the capital improvement.
Right,
what
it's your
the
job to
request-
explain that,
Right.
why are we having this warrant? Well, we have a capital improvement plan, this has been the standard, and then it's more,
And I think as you get to change in boards, if you don't have that, you lose a little bit of
You're
that
right, you're right,
background,
yeah.
so.
yeah. I thought it was interesting though, but they've expanded on some things in the, website, so it's always a learning process for me, and I was fortunate enough to get all my information into the DRA so she can at least start the, review process, so that hopefully I'll have my comments and or acceptance, so that next week we'll have a very, close to final, budget review and warrant review.
Okay, so
My
the
goal.
consensus is to keep it, like we do it regular,
Okay.
with the information.
That sounds good.
Okay. I'm gonna go mailbox now, a couple things I wanna go through the mailbox now. I have this thing about Brett Sinclair.
That was for Dave, supposed to
Yeah,
bring
you
that
want
up.
me to go over that?
Yeah, please, it's your.
Well, Fred's in the crowd, but they had made several different departments, the Conservation Commission, the Town Forest, and the Kanawha Town Forest Committee. Also, they got together and they put a plaque together for Ed White, because he served on all three boards. And they agreed in their meetings to divide that by all three boards. And because we cut the checks for the Conservation Commission, Town Forest cuts their own check, and the Kanawha Forest Committee they're asking for Lean to cut two $29 checks to pay for that plaque.
Is it 229?
Yep, two $29 checks, and Fred's gonna cut the third one.
Oh, okay.
So each of those different ones are conservation,
Okay,
and then the Kennewick.
I think we have consensus, we
You
don't,
can call it the Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah,
I think
it's a
we,
little easier.
I don't think we have to vote on it, we have consensus, that's just,
That's,
Yeah, they voted upon it upon their group, and they asked me to
just, make it,
review that with you, Lean, so we just get the checks cut.
okay.
make it
So it
happen.
doesn't reference that there, so we have to write the check for the Kennewick as well,
Yes,
because their
and so
funds.
Ron Jarvis is the person we're gonna need to write the checks
I'm
to.
gonna let Fred,
Now, I was gonna mention it, you should go to Ron,
Yeah,
cause he paid for the plaque.
Okay,
so
So
Ron
I-
Jarvis is the recipient, and
So I
Fred's
have-
already cut him his
so I
check.
have the information from conservation, I'll ask someone other than Ron to give me authority to release
They-
$29 from
Well,
there.
Brett St. Clair is the chairman of the Conservation Commission.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got
Okay,
his email,
you can ask Margaret Watkins.
okay, I can do that, I'll ask her.
Yeah, and they were all at the meeting there the other night, and everybody was in agreement to it. I attended the meeting too as a select rep.
Okay, perfect.
I know. All right, we'll continue on, okay, now we'll make it happen, no problem.
Yep,
Okay, this is our town attorney has, basically farmed out some of the business for our,
utility
Utility
appeals.
fees, yeah.
Yeah,
and so we all already agreed to it, it's just a matter of me signing it.
yeah,
because you're gonna pay for it.
I know, my name's on there, I think everyone else should sign that one. All right. If we recall, we had discussed guidelines from the selectmen for the Everett Road extension, we all had a chance to read it, I emailed everyone, any problems with that, gentlemen?
Nope, and I would say very good job, Mike, for putting all of those notes we had all together on that Everett Road extension.
I don't think, by consensus, we'll make this happen, Lean, could you file that within each lot in the subdivision
do you
files?
want me to reach out to him and say
And-
that you've come up with a plan,
And,
Proposal.
proposal?
guidelines.
Good, okay. And then invite him in for a meeting?
No, if he wants,
If he wants to, if not, he wants to
Because
see those.
He's kinda giving everything to Jeff Crosby on here anyways.
Okay, do you want me to just copy this to him?
You
See
can.
if that's adequate, and if not, he can come in and discuss it with
Yep.
you?
Scan it and email it to
Okay.
him and ask him if he
And
wants.
dated for today.
Okay,
Okay, if you notice, I did, work on the Selectmen's message for the, town report. Bob picked up a typo for me, a grammar change, thank you, Bob.
I thought it was very good, Mike. The only thing I saw in here that we didn't really describe is we did do some repair in the bathroom area of Woody's.
That's
that's
not yet.
still,
We're still work in
that's
progress.
encumbered, yeah.
I'll save it for next year.
Everybody's going down the toilet, don't worry.
But consensus?
Very good.
Consensus, okay.
Yeah, no, that was good, like I said,
You
The
know,
only thing I wanted to do is, I wanted to look up last year's and read how you wrote last year's
Yeah.
and just compare it to this
I
year's,
was
see if we
look-
missed anything.
I was
It's-
looking for it.
Yeah,
Did you, read last year's?
Yes.
Double check, okay.
I use it as a guideline.
okay,
good.
I had to shrink it
Yeah.
down.
Good job.
what
I couldn't
happens
put the
is,
name- I
this
couldn't put
garages
Selectmen's
is
tree.
plural, so you have
Yeah.
to use
Because I
words.
ran out of
and
space, I
lines.
put them all alphabetical. All right, continuing on. I want to discuss, I'll wait till then, let me go to the mailbox one more time. Steve Lawrence, I want to talk about that before we leave tonight. Steve Lawrence. I'm gonna open up for public comment.
No. Yeah.
Fred,
I've seen a lot of boards over the last 48 years here, and I said, you guys have your disagreements, but this board really seems to meld together good.
oh, but you don't see us behind the scenes, don't worry.
From what I see now and then, it seems to be a good board.
Fred, I've come to realize you can't please everybody.
I know,
And the thing is, you gotta do, we gotta learn, we compromise too.
that's right.
And we sometimes hold the line, but we're not unreasonable, we don't cut people off all the time.
Yep.
And Chief's got a gun over there, I
He
listen
just-
to him, I say
He
yes,
just
sir.
signed up for another 3 years, we'll see if we
Good.
can keep him on board.
You get your name up there first?
Yeah,
All right.
Okay, thank you. Chief, do you have anything for us? No. Okay. I just wanna recognize, just call, Chief, the thing is, we had an incident at Everett Road of some gunfire hitting a home. I won't,
not in Everett Road though.
no, I forgot, I stand corrected, Overlook. Everett Road's on my mind. And, Chief, there was a lot of concern about on the residents, and for the record, Chief did some research into it, investigated it, and responded very accurately to the residents. And, thank you for doing that. It was, good work. for you and your department. I don't think it solves all the problems, but you've addressed them, so thank you. Okay, back to the board, I'm gonna go for Dave first.
Well, I'd like you to pull up the information on the security alarm, I'd like to do a consensus.
That's what I was gonna do.
Oh, you were, I'll leave that for you.
Okay.
Um,
No, but since you brought it up, let's do it now.
okay,
Okay, the thing is, I thought it was, I think our lawyer was pretty astute in saying that we have legal grounds to go after this company, but legal fees may eat us up. And rather than putting any more money in legal, I'd rather put money into this new contract with this other gentleman.
and just so the public's aware, but our town attorney tried speaking with the gentleman to try and get some consensus to where he's at and where we could go from here, and apparently he was rude back to our attorney, so she didn't even wanna deal with him at this point, so I'm in consensus, if the rest of the board is, to go ahead with the new proposal. Let me read the dollar amount again, Mike. I'd like to make a motion that we hire Pro Technologies, Safety and Security Comfort LLC from Hooksett Road in Hooksett, New Hampshire, the amount of $1,209.44 or less for their estimate to reprogram all of our security devices within the buildings.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
And I'll second your motion.
Only like this, I like
And I said or less because there could be some possible
And
savings.
to speak to all of the communications we got back and forth from, even when you were dealing with the security person we have now, and the latest ones, he's been very abrasive. We can't get an answer out of him, and he's stuck on when we get paid for time we haven't even used the security system. You know, so I don't know, I think that's a good call.
I think we had a lack of support from the other vendor, and instead of arguing with us, and he should have been supporting us, I feel, and
Should have been resolving the issue.
right, I mean, the
we'll
treatment,
work on the balances on his bills over the next couple months and see where we go with those, because
we've got 3 emails. One email said we owed nothing until the end of 2018, and then we got 2 more emails. One came in who said we owed like $800 because it was staggered, and then another one said we owed less than that. Another one we said 0. So 2 of them said 0.
and his yearly billing did not make any sense for the different dollar amounts that were on there for the same services.
So
So
he was all over the place.
maybe we should take a minute and write those differences down so that we could give them to our town attorney while they're fresh in our mind, so that she'll have backup if it does.
No, there's
go to some
copy
sort
of his invoices they sent to us, how 3 of them differ.
Yeah, they
For
are
the same
scanned,
services?
they've already been scanned and
Okay.
saved, so they're under,
Okay, motion's on the table, all in favor?
Aye.
Lean, you got action on that one.
okay, thank you.
All right, solar farm, I just wanna make sure we have a consensus that we're moving forward with it.
Yeah, I would hope we were gonna sign the contract.
I'm in consensus with it too, especially now that we've had the public meeting, and as everybody saw here today, everybody that came was in full support of it, and I think it was very well laid out by Dana.
Yeah, I think that committee did an excellent job this time.
We did.
And really turned over a lot to bring us a pretty good presentation.
So consensus, we can sign the contract, Lean?
Mhm.
Okay,
I haven't seen that yet, so I'll have them,
come back to us,
Have
okay?
Dana bring it back to us, and maybe we'll sign it at the next meeting if you want.
okay.
Okay, anything else, Dave?
No, I think I'm good.
Bob, we'll go to you,
No, I'm all set for tonight.
okay? I think I have run out of stuff to talk. Oh yeah, this item here, this is a note we received from one of our plow drivers. I'd like to have the town road agent take a look at this, since it concerns this department, and comment on it, whether we need to do anything on it. So just scan it, keep a copy for us, scan it,
Mhm.
give them a scanned copy, and return the original per request from the
Yep.
person.
I can do that.
Okay, thank you. Is that, gentlemen, that was my proposal. You all consensus there?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
I'll make a motion that 9:16 we
So
adjourn.
we want,
Lean's got something.
She said she was done already.
Yeah, I think we
okay.
covered everything I had to bring up.
Then I'll second the proposal.
We ended it quick tonight.